I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, they say, oh, we know where Canada is, and British Columbia on the west coast, right? Right. And we are in central British Columbia, about 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers for our European friends, and obviously Canada, beautiful, beautiful country, and British Columbia in particular, very beautiful, and that's where we are. And today, a very, very special guest on the topic of communication skills, Jeff Callahan. Jeff is a leading expert in social confidence and communications, known for helping high performance overcome self-doubt, would include me at one point in my life, so that's why I like the topic, and master people skills drive both personal and professional success. Over the last 10 years, he reverse engineered more than 90,000 conversations, coached over 100 FAANG professionals. Just wonder what FAANG means, we'll talk about that a little bit, and build a system that helps people turning overthinking into social confidence. Jeff, amazing bio. So tell us about you. Tell us about, what does FAANG mean? I never heard that word before.
Yeah, John, and I appreciate you having me on the podcast, and I'm excited to get into it. So FAANG is shorthand for a collection of stocks. So I believe they stand for Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Google. So basically the tech sector.
Yeah.
Right? And I think these days there's something else called Mag 7, which includes Tesla and some other stuff. And so most of my clients happen to be in the tech sector more often than not. But yeah, that's what FAANG means.
Excellent. So the other part I was just going to mention while you're introducing yourself, then it comes to my mind. Amazingly, I'm going to be 85 in the next month and a half. So I call it 85 years young. So I have a hard time catching up with all the technology, but I'm doing pretty good, and I like it, and all the things that go forward. Anyway, just continue with your introduction.
Yeah. So a little bit of my backstory is all through elementary school, junior high, high school, even a little bit of college, I was painfully shy. And in fact, I had a speech impediment so bad I couldn't say my own name, which, as you might imagine, made it a little bit more difficult to communicate with people, and it probably needed to be. And so at a certain point, I realized, look, I don't want to live the rest of my life this way. I'm planning on living to 85, hopefully, maybe even longer, who knows? I realized, like, look, that's not how I want to live the rest of my life. And so I went on a self-development binge and put myself in situations where I knew I would have to be social. And a big part of that was making sure that I was, professionally from the years probably 2005-ish to probably 2017, I was in retail sales. And so you stack up a lot of conversations that way, but also I took every opportunity to be as social as possible. And through that process, I started to kind of pick out things that worked pretty well for me, and lo and behold, they work pretty well for my clients as well. I have clients from Netflix, Google, Microsoft, Visa, Stanford, Harvard, the whole gamut. And so my mission in life, and I believe at this point, I'm about to turn 39 in a couple weeks. My mission in life is to help people that feel like they know that they could be more social, they know they could be more socially confident, but they are stuck in overthinking, and they just want to have sort of a social dial that they can turn up at different points in their life, John. So that might be in their career, that might be in their personal life, and I want them to feel like they have a pathway and a framework that they can use to be more social.
So the interesting part about it, Jeff, in looking at your bio, you being shy was also because you were stuttering, and that is something that is not uncommon, but it leads towards being very, very self-conscious, I presume. Mm-hmm. So I want you to talk about that a bit as well, because I know people are have that challenge a lot of times, and thinking that they can get beyond it, and you would be the example of yes, you can. The other one that I had an uncomfortably lack of self-confidence, I would believe, for a long time. that became part of my life in a way, and it took me a long time to get to the point of who am I, and it affected my social interaction because of lack of self-confidence in a way. Academically, I failed grade 3, I failed grade 7 3 times, grew up during the Second World War, and all of those other challenges, and then went to Canada and wanted to start from the beginning all over again. But it took me a long time until I determined as to who am I, what were the elements that gave me difficulty. The one of them was when I was not a good communicator, and I had self-confidence. I already had all kinds of companies here in Canada, and I could talk to about 2 or 3 of my employees, but beyond that, I had difficulty until a friend suggested I should go to an organization called Toastmasters. And I did. And with Toastmasters, probably practiced for the last 30, 40 years, all throughout the world, maybe beyond, and in North America in particular, but in Canada, but also in the rest of the world. It deals with communication skills. In particular, I say, is that about speaking? No, it's about listening first and foremost, then about speaking on your feet, and then about developing presentations. And I want to the level of becoming a distinguished Toastmaster. It's the highest level in Toastmasters, maybe 1% of the people or less than that go to that level. For me, it changed my life. The other thing that changed my life is that picking up a book in a bookstore here in Prince George in 1997, and the book was titled Driven to Distraction. And this is the actual book that I picked up. I don't know why I picked it up, and when I looked at the book, it was about ADHD and dyslexia. I'd never even heard about it. And I said, when I took this book and I read it, and I said, oh my God, that's me. I wrote in it in January of 1997, that now I finally know who I am. The combination of Toastmastering and discovering that I'm ADHD, and then also dyslexia, it changed my life. And once I started to address it, after I read the book in 1997, it took me 5 years before I would go to my doc, who was a personal friend, delivered our 2 daughters, and he said to me, hey John, why are you here? I said, I think I got ADHD. And so we checked on it, I do. And then I came to the conclusion that ADHD is a superpower, or it can be. And dyslexia has always been something that has been with me. I was in school, even when I failed grade 3 and grade 7 3 times, I was good at writing, but not reading. And then the other part is obviously ADHD, being easily distracted by things that I was not really interested in it. So I could sit in school, and after 2 hours, if somebody asked me, what did you talk about? I had no idea. So,
Same here.
Anyway,
Same here.
So, okay, there you go. So those are the elements, and they changed my life after I was 62 and got diagnosed. From there on in, I had changed my whole life in terms of that I knew I can, and these are the elements, and how do I work with it? From there on in, I became an author. I'm working on my 6th book, actually, starting with this one, Against All Odds. The other one that I just finished, you like this one, $1 Billion Communication Skills. That's what it is. It's not
Nice.
how to become a billionaire, but communication skills and how important it is to do that. That is the critical part. Was released in July 31st. Is already a bestseller on Amazon. And then I became a presenter, and my companies became more effective in starting to grow. And obviously I became, I can say that to you because you will put it in proper perspective, I became very successful in podcasting. And so we are approaching 1 million subscribers on YouTube and podcasting around the world, which is the new media, and it's only at the beginning because it will go much further. But it changed the combination of all the above. But who am I? I left school when I was 12 and a half years old, And people said to my parents, what are you going to do with this guy? And then some people said, send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So they sent me to a furniture factory to become a laborer, because the school teacher said he will not amount to much here. You know, the best is to make him find him a job and then leave him to do those kind of things, because he's not bright enough. And kids are hard on each other. But I knew within me that I was just as smart, not smarter than, but just as smart as everybody else. But I had to prove it to me. And my dream was to go to Canada. That's what I did. And then start with nothing. That's what I did. And today I'm not saying, hurrah, hurrah, how successful John is. It's not about that. But at least I have confidence. I'm a good presenter. I'm a good writer. And I believe I'm a good podcaster. So that gives you a bit of my background.
Yeah.
At nearly 85. And then the other thing I should add to it, I'm also the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. And nice. I believe in health and fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, there's a lot of good stuff to dig into there, John. So right off the top, I was diagnosed ADHD, I think when I was 5. And, you know, I was thinking before this podcast, you know, why was I so shy all the way through school? Well, and, you know, I'm not going to pretend to be a medical expert, because I'm not, but I was placed on one of the popular medications back in the early 90s for ADHD. And what that presented in me was a couple of things. Inhibiting of appetite is a big one. And then hyper focus to the point of you almost couldn't do much of anything. Like socializing was kind of out the door. And so when you layer on ADHD medication, which probably is, you know, who knows, it might be right for some people. It just wasn't right for me. And when you layer on top of that the speech impediment issue, that mixed into a cocktail that, you know, of course you're going to get the results that you got because, you know, the recipe was perfectly suited for that. And to your point about feeling confident, you know, that's a really important thing. One of the things that I'm writing a book myself. In the last chapter, I have a bunch of lessons that took me 20 years to learn. And one of them is confidence is the ability to predict the outcome of your actions with a high degree of accuracy. Accuracy only comes from a high amount of reps. And so you end up developing this faith in yourself of, I've been here before, and I know within a rough range what the outcome is likely to be. And so that ends up giving you the feeling of competence, and it only comes through competence.
I agree with you, and there's nothing to do with ego or anything like that, but in order for me to be effective, I have to know who am I. And then for me, it took a long time, because at 12 and a half years old, I started working in the factory. My friends that used to be my friends that went on to college and university, all of a sudden were no longer my friends because I was a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then it was looked down at. And so can you imagine this, that 12 and a half years old, going to the factory and becoming a laborer and being looked down at? I liked it actually, but it took me 50 years till I was 62 until I was diagnosed with ADHD. 50 years. And so, and from that point forward, it changed my life. And then, and all the other things became clear. And so from that point forward, my whole life has changed. And so, and including, becoming an author, being a speaker and a presenter in demand, and doing all the things that I do, I now feel not so much making a lot of money in successful companies. That is not important to me. What is important to me, though, more than anything, is giving back wherever I can and saying that everything is possible and you can. And if I can help those that are challenged, then that's my goal.
Yeah, I recently heard the phrase sort of going forth and donating yourself to the world.
Exactly.
And
I like that.
You know, could be in the form of giving back, but it's more of, for me, the people that come to me that struggle with social confidence, what ends up happening is, so, and I have talked to thousands of people over the last 10 years, and they end up in a place where they feel like they're the only ones struggling because people don't typically talk about, hey, I would like to improve my communication skills. I'd like to improve my social skills. They don't talk about it, so they end up suffering in silence, and they feel like there's no way out. And the reality is it's a learnable set of skills that you can learn for sure, and expose yourself to kind of the right environments that are helpful, and do that consistently, and over time you're going to get better whether you want to or not if you put in good practice and you have a lot of consistency. I mean, I love that you're a gym goer and a bodybuilder. I started lifting in 2020 seriously. I was always very underweight, and I ended up gaining 39 pounds. And through that process, like, you show up every other day in the gym, and you just put in the reps, and you don't have to be perfect at any one rep or any one conversation. It's more about thinking very long term and saying, hey, if I am consistent, I will improve. And that's great, because that puts you in a winning state where you're constantly winning because you're putting in effort, as opposed to feeling like, oh, I have to make a friend. Well, if you haven't made that friend, you're in a losing state until you make the friend, and that's not helpful. So I'm a big fan of winning as much as you can and winning consistently.
And then the other example, without going too far into it, I was born in 1940, November the 1st, 1940. So a month and a half, 2 months from now, I'll be 85. And during the Second World War, saw Fatima that we should not have seen, affected me by PTSD, which still is with me today. And then, that affected me. And then I grew up in northeastern Holland, and we spoke dialect there. And I love speaking dialect. If I speak dialect, the Dutch will not understand me until I speak High Dutch. But since I only went to grade 7 3 times, so I never became good at speaking High Dutch. So I spoke dialect, and a lot of times when people hear me speak dialect, they say, "Oh, he's a farmer from up north," So then I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force when I was 18, and then I had to learn to speak High Dutch. And that was not easy for me. And then after I was through there, my dream was we were liberated by the Canadian Army April the 12th, 1945. It made such an impression on me as 5 years old that I knew once I grew up I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada, and I did. So I came here when I was 24, and I barely had learned to speak High Dutch. Now I had to learn to speak English. And so obviously I'm doing okay on that part after 60 years.
Yeah,
and when I came off the bus with nothing, I arrived in Vancouver, and then went to the immigration department, and I could speak English. And so fortunately there was a German fellow in I could speak some German. I said, I want to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George. That is 800 kilometers north, as I said earlier. And so that's where I went, and I came off the bus, the Greyhound bus here. I could still see where 60 years ago. And I had a suitcase. I want to start with nothing, to prove to me that I was just as good as anybody else. Not better than, but just as good. And so I had my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and then very little money. I counted it at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But what I did, I had attitude. I've always been positive. Even in my own little world, I've always been positive. And then passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. I give it all that I got. And work ethic, I work harder than anybody. And I still do that today at 85. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And obviously, in terms of acquiring to speaking English is working for me. And so even to the extent that now I'm one of the most active and well-known podcasters in Western Canada as a single individual with over a million subscribers on YouTube, and on and on and on and on. So that all those other things didn't trouble me. And then I became an author after I was 62, and I'm working on my 6th book. Is a book about you can. And then the other books follow that. And, it became, as you so well put, is that I donate my effort to the world. And what I've done, and based on you can.
Yeah, I love it. And, there's something I think about a lot where it's, if you feel like you're not capable, if you feel like you're not able to do something, if you start learning the skills and then you can, there's a flip that switches and your mindset kind of moves to, hey, yes, I can do this. And if you're comparing yourself not to other people, which is something that people who want to be more social and socially confident can struggle with, they look at someone else and say, oh, this person's so confident, they're all put together. My goodness, they never have an awkward moment. And the reality is, I've talked to that other person, and that person has moments of doubt and has moments where they feel like they're awkward. And so if you show your mind frequent proof of your competence, eventually you're going to start believing the proof. And so that kind of relates back to that positive mindset of, look, I don't have to know everything. If I am better than I was yesterday, and I go back, and this is what I tell my clients to do, I'm a big believer in documenting social wins. So they document their social wins, and then they go back and look at times when they were successful, thus getting their brain into a state where their brain is shown frequent proof of their competence. And that ends up leading to confidence down the line.
Absolutely no question about that, Jeff. And I always remember, in 1990, when I was 50 years old here in Prince George, and somebody said to me, come with me to Toastmasters, little group of about 20 people. And I said, what is it all about? It's about communication skills. I said, are they going to ask me questions? No. I said, because if they do, I'm not going. And during the middle of the meeting, somebody said, hey, John, tell us all about it. I said, I'll never go back here. So I could have crawled out of there. But I went back, and then I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the 10 years that I was a Toastmaster that came in and had challenges with communication. But during all that period, I've never seen anybody as challenged as me. I could have crawled out of there on hand and feet to just get away from it. And it gets to your point, expose yourself to it. Accept that others, they may not look like, have challenges as well. And if you can, which you can, especially by reading books I'm not selling my books, that's not what it is about, but getting exposure to others that have gone that route, then you will get through there. You stay the course, and you're a good example of that in all the things that you do. And once you do, and you create that confidence, not that you're better than, but that you can express yourself, and that will give a sense of who am I in terms of reconciling as to who you are with all the good things and the challenges that you have, because nobody is perfect, but that puts you in the position that you're no worse than, or where at one point if I go into a group of people, they're all pointing at me and saying, what is he doing here? So that kind of a feeling. And once you get behind that, we are all the same.
Yeah, we are all the same. And I was just editing the chapter in my book where I talk about something called choose your own reality. And so what I mean by that is there are many social situations that are just ambiguous. We can explain it any number of ways. And what most people do, because there's this thing called the negativity bias, where there's a gentleman by the name of Rick Hansen, PhD, and he's done some good research on this. He has a quote that says something like, to the brain, negative experiences are like Velcro, and positive experiences are like Teflon. And so when we're choosing, like, say the classic example I bring up with clients is you message someone and they don't message you back. We're not given hardly any information. It's a vacuum. It could be explained however we want. And so what some people default to is an unhelpful story of, what's wrong with me? What did I say? Is this person mad at me? Yeah. We're not given any information, so we're going to fabricate a story. And I suggest to clients, well, look, if we can fabricate a story and it's going to be inaccurate, whatever story we make up is going to be inaccurate, because I don't know about you, John, but my number one thing is I know that I can't mind read, and I don't know the whole story in almost every situation. And so
Exactly.
flipping it and coming up with a helpful story of, well, this person's probably just busy, or they've got something going on. They'll get back to me later, or if I don't hear from them, I'll text them again. And just that little shift from a default unhelpful negative story to not even necessarily a positive story, just a neutral story. That flip opens you up where you feel like you can contribute more and you can be more social because you're not zeroed in on a negative interpretation of a potentially neutral event that probably has nothing to do with you more often than not, because we're the center of our world. If we're walking past the movie theater and we see like the heads on the posters, our head is going to be the biggest head on our movie poster.
Exactly.
But on everyone else's movie poster, like John, I'm not on your movie poster. That's okay.
Exactly.
And I'm a smaller head on my wife's movie poster, right?
Exactly.
And so just centering yourself and kind of taking the ego out of it and realizing that, hey, I can explain ambiguous situations in a more neutral way that ends up being a lot more helpful to me. And so, yeah, I think about that with clients all the time.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%, is that once you go from assuming the negative to not only the positive, but even if you go to the middle, is saying there was no thought on the other side, the person may just have been busy, so we'll just send them another small reminder in and saying, I'm sure, I hope you're doing well and okay, so blah, blah, blah. But you will see in most cases is that it is exactly as you said. It's usually because of other circumstances, have nothing to do with you. So assume the positive or the middle of they are just busy because it is more constructive for you. And it likely is the case more so than the opposite.
Yeah, 100%. And something else that makes me think of is so many of my clients, like they come to me and they want to rebound from awkward moments where, because sometimes you're in a conversation and something doesn't land right, and I teach my clients something called the 3Fs: flush, fix, forget, to try to move through that awkward moment to ultimately get back into whatever you're doing. It could be just your morning coffee, or it could be a conversation that you're currently in. And so what I tell people, and this is closely related to choose your own reality, where it's very tempting when you're replaying an awkward moment to get those VR goggles on where you're sort of first person view, you're looking out of your own eyes and you're reliving that experience over and over and over. But you're not moving past it at all. And so what I tell clients is, if you can view yourself as a third person, or even swap out yourself for someone else in that moment where you told that joke that didn't land. Because the reality is, we give other people the benefit of the doubt way more than we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. We need to be as kind to ourselves as we are to other people. But from there, you can just ask yourself a simple question. Like, look, if I was in a similar situation in the future, is there anything that I would change? And maybe there is, maybe there's not. Both answers are fine. But processing that through gives you the right to forget it, or even forgive yourself, to move on and then get back to the conversation, get back to the meeting, get back to just hanging out with your kids or whatever you're doing, because that's probably more important than rerunning an awkward moment where you weren't able to catch that assumption and it devolved into what's wrong with me thinking.
And all of that is part of the reason that I wrote this book, $1 billion communication skills. It's all about communication skills. It's so critically important. And so I'm going to send you a copy of this book as well,
I love it.
And sign it for you. And it's out on Amazon. It's an Audible as well. It takes me longer because I'm not a good reader, even out of my own writing, and but I have a good memory, and so all of those things.
I'm an audiobook person.
Yeah. So it's all available, and so maybe you want to check on it. But I'm going to send you a copy of this book in particular as well, about communication.
Yeah, I would love that.
So the other part is that. So what are the things that people get wrong about building social confidence. And it's something, as I alluded to earlier, and you did as well. Initially, it was that English is my second or third language, and I always thought that I likely are not articulating my thoughts well, or they say, who is this guy? Or all these self-confidence things that stop me from interacting. So what are the other ones that you see in your experience about building social confidence? Are the critical issues?
Yeah, so we've already talked about some of them, which is keying in on competence and realizing that you eventually will be confident if you are competent first. But that competence only comes from putting yourself in situations where you can practice. And that's another big piece of the puzzle where at least my clients and the people I talk to, they're smart folks that are, having great careers. And I think sometimes the downside of maybe being smart is you try to over intellectualize everything and over plan and think like, hey, how can I mitigate every possible downside? How can I outthink my way through this problem? And the reality is, and the older I've gotten, I realize that speed is so much more important than doing things perfectly. Like, do things fast and put yourself in situations where you'll have to be social. And what I tell my clients is, instead of getting hung up on trying to find the absolute perfect event, treat events like a funnel where you want them to fit into three categories. One is it meets regularly. So you want it to meet, maybe it's every month, maybe it's every week, pick that cadence. It has regulars, so it has people that go over and over, because you don't want a new crowd every single time, even though that's better than staying at home, obviously. But the third thing is you're somewhat interested in it. And I use that word somewhat strategically. So maybe you're not super into pickleball or a running club or something like that. But if you're at least a little bit interested in it, go once just to see if you'll like it. I got that phrase from one of my readers that I was on a call with him. And I love it because you have to, in a certain respect, be an explorer, because say that you go to 10 events to practice the skills that you're learning, then the reality is, are you going to magically end up with all 10 events that you go to every month? Probably not. It's going to be a funnel. And so out of those 10 events, a couple don't meet regularly, another few don't really have regulars, but you end up with 3 go-to events that you love, that you can start to build a social history. And so that's the weekly side of it, getting those opportunities to practice. But there's also probably a lot of opportunities that people just ignore in their daily life. And so if they are sort of the work from home type, well, okay, working from home, I get it. You don't have to commute, but maybe your office is somewhat close and you could go in one day a week. Great. Maybe you could work from a coffee shop a couple of afternoons a week. Great. There are opportunities that are oftentimes right in front of people that they just ignore, like putting in your headphones and walking the dog. Well, take out your headphones and look for neighbors that are also walking their dogs that you can have a conversation and tell them that their dog is so cute. Like, so capitalizing on, yes, you need to build the skills. You need to know how to have a good conversation. You need to make a good first impression and have the right mindset. But don't try to outthink your way into just getting out there and looking for opportunities and being that explorer to try to have as many opportunities as possible. Because the more opportunities you have, the more opportunities to practice, the faster you're going to improve. The less opportunities to practice, the slower you'll improve. That's kind of the math behind the scenes.
I like this, Jeff, because what I do is that I usually get up at 5:30, and then by about 6:30 I go to my office. I'm usually the first one there, the last one to leave, of all the conversations that I have, but I like it. And then what I do, I'm not advertising anything here, or but then I have a habit. What I do, I go to Starbucks and get a coffee. Not in the window, I go into Starbucks. And the amazing thing that happens, because I'm a happy guy. I'm a smiley guy. I say, hey, good morning, and everybody is already saying, I'm barely in the door and say, hey, John, how are you doing, John? Hey, John. And it's amazing. And so I like that. And simply that is because I love every day to me is a special day. And I'm basically a happy guy. That does not mean I'm a businessman, and I can be firm as well and all of those kind of things. But most of the times the people that see me say, he's always happy and always contented, and it shows. The other thing that we do, my wife, myself, I've been married for about 42, 43 years, and so we go to the dog park on the weekends. We have 2 doggies, and so we go to the dog park just for exercise for the dogs and ourselves. But it is amazing, as you use it as references. We spend so much time talking to people about dogs and their dogs and our dogs. And then the next thing, we're talking to Sherry. She said that her husband Fred passed away when it was then, and she comes to and the stories go on and on and on. And it is an amazing place to get to know likewise people that enjoy their animals and spend time in the dog park. And all those things come automatically, but you must try to be inviting. If you look like you're not really enjoying, and it will show in different ways, then that will make people uneasy to say, hi, hello, how are you? And that part is important. And then the other thing that I do after this show is over, I go 4 times a week, I go to the gym, work with a trainer. I take that very, very serious, and I don't spend much time socially. I'm there to work out, but at the same time, I'm friendly. And so, and I'm very, very serious about the things that I do. And all of those things collectively are important, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. And one thing that I really like about that is you mentioned when you go into the coffee shop and you have a lot of enthusiasm, and you've built a social history there because they're probably already pouring your drink because they know exactly what you like.
Exactly.
And being a regular. And so finding places that you can be a regular, really important. But when you show up there, showing up with some enthusiasm, right? Because you nailed it when you said, if you're, and a lot of people don't mean to be this way, but they have sort of what I call safety energy, where they're kind of reserved, and what that ends up doing to other people, it scans as, oh, I can't get a good read on this person. I don't know if they're going to be pleasant to talk to or not. So I'm going to take my cue from them and say, well, maybe I'll just hang back and maybe I won't talk to them. What's much better is entering conversations, entering interactions, entering places with more enthusiasm. If you make a little bit of a splash, that's fine, because people are very reflexive in the energy, like emotional contagion, that they are going to rebound back to you. So we can, they may not rebound your exact energy level back to you, but if you are positive and you're enthusiastic, that is going to matter in a big way, because other people are going to say, hey, if John's excited, I can be excited too, because he's kind of made it okay to be excited. And so that's a huge thing that I think a lot of people just ignore and kind of sleep on. And so I love that.
And then the other part, and I'm just telling you that just out of, so then I go shopping, and again, at the risk of advertising, I'm not advertising for anybody, but I went to Costco, and it's busy here, and I'm walking around and I'm looking at stuff, and then this older lady comes up to me and she says, I like your podcast. I said, yeah. That kind. So what I'm saying is that most people like to interact. They don't like to really be negative, but once they go through the experience of touching you and getting a positive response, that will stay with them and say, I like that, And so, and if it is a habit, then hence the experience that I have when I go every morning into Starbucks, they already see me coming and they say off on the back, hey John, so that's, I like it. And so it starts off the day well, and but basically what I say is that be you, and then try to, as much as you can, at least saying, be lucky to be where we are. And that's probably something that's important for me, because I saw all these other things, the difficult times that we had during the war years, nothing to eat, food, seeing far too much that we should not have seen, PTSD, and blah, 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 and a child, all those things. And then the post-war was difficult, and all those things I've seen, and I say, at least in North America, we are the luckiest people on earth living where we are living. I do a lot of business in the United States. I fly around a lot, and if I do sit in commercial flights, I sit by the window, and a lot of times I look outside and say, it's paradise. It is paradise.
Yeah.
And so those parts are important to me.
Yeah. And, you know, I'll ask you this because I'm curious. Something that I touch on in my book, and I may write another book about this, but something that I'm interested in is how basically these third spaces, you know, you think of a place like Toastmasters or these places that aren't work and aren't home. Being that you probably have a wider perspective, just being older than I am, what have you noticed in terms of the dwindling of third spaces and just having less opportunities for the average person to socialize in a place that's not work and not home?
Very, very much an issue in my mind, Jeff. That's saying we should be aware of that. We have cell phones, I do too. I have social media, Facebook, on and on and on and on. And we have to now be more proactive in terms of interacting on personal levels. And we have to find them relating to what you say. It's a pickleball, do you want to go there? Go to the hockey games, or whatever you do, you have to find that social interaction. Extremely important, I believe, outside of all of that. And that's what I like about the media is changing, and we can see it on, the international television, CNN, ABC. In Canada, the media is changing because lots of advertisement being leaning forward in political directions, correctly or incorrectly, whatever it is, that the interest is reducing. The same with newspapers. I believe what people like now is that how do we get in touch with each other on a more social level, spontaneously, more than anything. That we have to find and seek out. Hence, in my opinion, that's why podcasting is so important, because it's just on its infancy, relatively young, because it was 4 or 5 years ago, mainly post-COVID and during COVID, that I started podcasting on Facebook and international, that it's exploding. And what makes it unique, everybody has their own model. My model is being very open, very candid about different guests that I bring in from all kinds of different fields, and up to millions of people can be watching that, and they like it. Hence, I release them so quickly within 2 hours is because it is virtually actually as it happens, and I will not make any changes. I haven't in 450 podcasts, and it is genuine on all kinds of topics in different parts. So this is one vehicle for one, but the other ones for an individual. Try to find it. May it be in interactions at Costco, it may be at Starbucks, or may it be on a field someplace, and say, find the interaction somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's critically important, more so all the time. Starting from education forward, the whole educating system is must change, and I believe it will change.
Yeah, I think my hunch is that probably from 2007 to maybe 2025, we went through a period of hyper technology. So yeah. Everyone's got a screen in their pocket. Every screen's got an algorithm, right? And so my hunch is that we'll hopefully move to a not necessarily a rejection of technology, because I mean, technology's here, it's staying, right? But
Yeah.
I think that we're probably the pendulum's probably going to swing a little bit more towards people prioritizing in-person events, and taking it on themselves to say, hey, you know what, instead of scrolling or binging, I'm going to go out and talk to people. And so where I think we are right now is a kind of a really important time, actually, because right now there are, tech companies and other entities that their interest is to keep you on the phone, keep you scrolling, and keep you somewhat isolated from other people. And I talk about this just a touch in the book, but there's a rise of AI companions happening right now where it's going to be a huge business. And so my thought is, you can be a rebel and talk to people and build your people skills so that you'll have the option of going in real life, IRL, to connect with other people and have a much richer and more fulfilling life potentially than just scrolling on your phone or talking to your favorite AI. But it's definitely interesting times right now.
So the other thing, and at 85, I can say that I've seen it all from the early 80s when computers came to the scene and changed the world. I say artificial intelligence, or referred to as AI, and all the phases of it will be equal to, if not more than, that we have seen in the past. No question about that. I want to be part of that. Am I worried about it? No, I'm not. But it will change things where all the things that we do all around us will involve AI, is already to a certain extent, and it's all based on data, mainly in collection of data, but it offers also opportunities. And that's why I believe podcasting is so important. And then again, writing is important, that you do and I do. Have you got the book already? How far are you with your book?
So it's just about to be shipped off to my editor, actually, and because it's basically done. I'm just going back through some of the chapters.
Yeah.
I do have the it's gonna look like that. It's called Confidence Maxing, and
I like it. Good title.
It's due out in 2026.
Okay.
And it's been a lot of fun. And honestly, it's funny. I'm just writing about stuff that I know really well, and so it hasn't altogether been that difficult, which sounds weird to say, because I put this book off for a couple of years. I thought I was going to write it a few years ago, but now I really got serious. And what's funny is I actually wrote my buddy a check for $1,000 and said, hey, if I don't get you a manuscript by this time, you get to cash the check. And it's a good motivator and incentive. And what really turned the corner for me is I would screenshot the amount of words that I've written every day and send it to just to keep me motivated. And sure enough, it ticked up every single day, and it became pretty easy after that. And so it's been a good experience.
So the other part about that, Jeff, is that for conversation between you and me, the other part that was important to me, because in spite of all the other things, dyslexia and ADHD, which I was not aware of until I was 62, is I was a very good writer, and people said to me, because I had already businesses and I was very successful, blah, 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 and they said, you should write a book about it. And that was always on my mind. I've always been a good writer, even in grade 3, grade 7, and on and on and on. And I was good with numbers. And so they said, you should write a book about it. And so I tried to write for 20 years. I started, because writing books is not easy. And I stopped, and I started, and stopped, and I started. And then I said, about 5-6 years ago, if I don't do it now, it will never happen. So it took me, this book here, Against All Odds, it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2.5 years to write it. And so it's been quite successful. And then, so that is and it's not about how successful John is. No, it's just the opposite, going through all the ups and downs along the way. And so, but the other part about it is, and I don't know your experience, is that it's about me and about all the things that I've gone through, that I like it. It is a form of communications from my perspective, with others. And it takes a while before it becomes more and more popular, but it gave me a satisfaction of a form of communications that I was not aware of. I was a very good writer, but I had never had the opportunity to share it with others. And by just doing the book, I know I gave that as impression. It gave me the satisfaction and the confidence of who am I? And that to me was important. And then from there on I liked it so much, I kept writing and writing and writing, even until this one, who is a bestseller on Amazon already before it came out. So the message is simply, it's another form of communications, of sharing with others. And I believe, for me, it was very, very satisfying.
Yeah, and what the thing I found as I go along is I view this as my magnum opus. It's everything I know, and so it's going to outlive me. And also, it's really satisfying to put in just things that are important to me that I wish the world knew, and even kind of silly stuff like a quote that I like from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and like stuff that's just personally important to me, and stuff that I find amusing or funny. And putting that stuff in the book is fun too, because it's like pouring a part of yourself into a book form, and then disseminating that to thousands or millions of people.
So the other part, so that as we work towards our 1 hour, it goes by very, very quickly. We have to make sure that we do another one once you release the book, and talk to Scott.
I would love that.
Who does a lot of coordinating, and then you have to come back on again. But so the other thing is, for someone listening to it that is stuck in socially interaction and feeling that way, what should the first step be to break this cycle, other than, but including what I already said, change who you are and how people perceive you to be, smile wherever you can, say hi, hello, that kind of presentation, but how do they go beyond that?
Yeah, so I think the first step would be, number one, realize that you're not the only person struggling with this. And there are many other people. My goodness, like if you only knew, I could fill up football stadiums with the amount of people that struggle socially.
Yeah.
So you're not alone. So realizing that takes some of the power away from it. Two is look at your daily life and say, hey, where do I have opportunities to socialize that are maybe hiding in plain sight? Write them down. Good. Two, or three, start small. Like you don't need to go to a mall or a venue and have 50 conversations. Like, no. What's much better is be consistent and small and small in your actions, but do it consistently. So having one conversation, saying hi to one person. It could be that maybe just smiling and raising your eyebrows to a cashier. Maybe that's your social win for the very first day. Totally fine. And you have to take things small and realize that it's a process. It takes a little while, but it can be done in a kind of a surprisingly short amount of time. We're not talking decades. We're talking more in the line of months or years. And it absolutely can be done. And key in on the fact that every time you put in effort, you are winning. And so that helps build momentum. That makes keeping that action going and that momentum going. That makes that way easier. So that's what I would say.
And do it natural.
Right. Yeah.
So that being said then, Jeff, talking about, in particular, the changing world, considering AI, all the things that will change, it becomes a challenge as to where are the opportunities and how do we get there. And what I found is that, and still find today, that our educational system is not effective. It does not recognize, the different challenges that individuals have, be it in socially in particular, How can we stimulate that right from the time that we go to kindergarten all the way into universities? How can we at least give them exposure to it and see it evolve? And I'm not sure, I'm positive we are not doing that now, but that part has to change as well.
Yeah.
And AI will already play a role in changing the whole structure as we know it today. You know, rather than sitting in classrooms for years and years and years talking about issues that we never will be dealing with, and micro certification issues in terms of focusing on the skill sets that we want to learn, but all the other things around it, becoming good, effective communicators is not part of the educational system. It has to be. I found in all the years that I've been around being successful and being interactive, especially after Toastmasters, and knowing who am I, that I'm speaking and presenting to a lot of people, but I've been also on lots of boards, and I find it amazing along the way how few of the leaders that we have are not effective communicators.
Yeah. Yeah.
For all those reasons.
Oh yeah. If I could change, man, there's a lot I could change, but I would say one of the things, you know, if you're a parent and you want to put yourself or your children in an environment where they can be successful, like I would tell you, get them involved in clubs and groups and activities outside of school as much as possible. They don't have to be great at it. I was only really good at one sport growing up, and I was middle of the pack in cross country running and track running. You know, I was decent at it, but I was not at the top of the pack. But that allowed me to interact with and be on a team, which really helped quite a bit. So leaning into those opportunities, incredibly important. And to your point, John, I agree with you in that sitting in a classroom for hours upon hours upon hours, you know, maybe it's the ADHD talking. I can't tell you a whole lot of what I learned in school. I really, you know, at a certain point, I never felt like I was learning skills that I necessarily needed until I became an entrepreneur. And then you can learn everything through a fire hose, and you learn what you need to learn. And so, yeah, I think you can probably relate on that front.
Tongue in cheek, I should add to that. I do a lot of presenting, and a lot of times I'm being very open about me. Failed grade 3 and failed grade 7 3 times. And so some of the questions that I had to some of the presentations, a lot of times actually, did you say, do you regret even now still that you only got to grade 7? And I say, yeah, I do. You know, it still bothers me a lot. I should have left earlier.
I love it.
Tongue in cheek, obviously, saying precisely
Right.
what we are saying. The system has to change.
Yeah, and the system's going to change very quickly, and your guess is as good as mine as what it's actually going to change to. But I think
Bill change, and that Bill deal with the issues that we bring to the table, and at least for both of us, doing what we are doing from the bottom of our heart, being open and candid about the challenges we had, will help others. And I'm positive about that. And serving the world in a way that I can do and you doing with your experience, to me, is immensely rewarding. And that's why I do it.
I love it.
Jeff, I look forward to your book. Stay in touch with Scott, and we'll have another podcast again because we got so many more things to talk about.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I think you were going to ask me where people can stay in touch with me.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Good. So, if two things for your audience. One is I have a gift for On the Brink listeners. So if you go to becomemorecompelling.com/group, then I have a 56-minute audio training on how to join and enjoy group conversations. And so I think that's going to be really helpful for your audience, and it'll set you up for success when you're going into those events or you're in situations where you know you're going to be in a group environment. That's one. Two, a pledge that I'll make to you and your audience is that anyone that feels like they're struggling socially, that wants advice, you can email me directly at jeff@becomemorecompelling.com. I promise I will reply to every single email, and I probably have something that I've done or a podcast that I've produced or a video that I've produced over the last 10 years that I can point you to that's going to set you up for success.
I appreciate that, Jeff. And then the other part for all the people that are watching us, if you like what we are doing, both Jeff and myself, then subscribe to our podcast, share it with others, like it if you like it. If you have comments, suggestions, then make them available to us. And, so that will encourage both Jeff and myself to do more writing about the issues that are close to our heart, and at the same time do podcasting, do it the same. Jeff, it was a privilege having you. Look forward to seeing you again. Stay in touch with Scott, and this podcast will be released within 2 hours.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me on, John.
Thanks, Jeff. Take care.